Morning to you all at home. We've got so much to get into, and we're going to kick off with arguably the transfer of the window so far. Marc Guehi's move to Manchester City. We will be live at Palace's training ground in a moment to see how they might replace him. But first, let's go live to the Etihad Stadium and join our reporter, Ben Ransom. Good morning to you, Ben. We'll get to Chris Nightingale shortly. But, Ben, can we expect confirmation of this deal today?
Look, Matt, you would imagine so. Manchester City's players have to gather and then fly off to Norway for a Champions League game against Bodo Glimt tomorrow. So you'd imagine that the people behind the scenes will be looking to try and get this done, especially as Marc Guehi was here to complete his medical yesterday. We saw him land in the morning. He then had a comprehensive medical here at a clinic close to the City Football Academy. And once that was completed yesterday evening, we got word that this deal is now just in the hands of the lawyers. It's all been agreed, that £20 million deal. We know that Marc Guehi's team have agreed personal terms. They just need the lawyers to sign off the final bits and then wait for City to do the announcement, however they see fit to do. But you're right to bill this as one of the signings of the window. Maybe the signing, maybe that'll be Antoine Semenyo. Maybe the two can fight it out in their first training session together. But look, what great signings for Manchester City right in the middle of a Premier League title race, which really does give them a much needed boost, doesn't it? Especially when you consider the fact that they have slipped 7 points now off the pace and behind Arsenal, who set the lead at the top.
They could, of course, waited until the summer, saved themselves around 20-odd million, which in Paul Merson terms is not a cup of tea, you would say. So why did they decide to make this move this month?
Yeah, not a cup of tea, but when you consider the fact that this is an England international central defender, someone whose star has really risen over the last couple of seasons, whenever he's been thrown in, either for club or country, he's looked very assured, he's clearly developed. Although he's predominantly right-footed, he can play on the left-hand side of a back two, which, given the fact that Josko Gvardiol is out for, we expect at least much of the rest of the season, that would leave a huge hole in the Manchester City defence. And I think it's just too good an opportunity to turn down. So often we hear, don't we, particularly from the big clubs in this window, they're not specifically looking for players, but if an exceptional opportunity presents itself, then they may do business. Well, look, as far as City are concerned, two exceptional opportunities presented themselves. Two players who were coveted by other Premier League teams, big Premier League teams, in Antoine Semenyo and Marc Guehi. And City have beaten their rivals to both of them in the middle of a season, in the middle of a title race. So because of those defensive injuries, you think back to what we saw at the weekends and that defeat in the derby, and particularly in the second half, defensively, City did not look very assured at all, did they? That's now 4 Premier League games without a win, 3 draws and now a loss, which has seen them slip behind Arsenal and that gap grow to 7 points. At this stage, to bring in someone of Guehi's undoubted quality and experience is a really huge statement from City, and you have to think it will galvanise the squad in the final few weeks and months of the season. And certainly, if I was an Arsenal fan, I would certainly be looking with a little bit of trepidation at what City have done, because they've certainly strengthened in a really difficult window.
Top word, thank you, Ben. I'm sure you'll let us know as soon as anything happens on the Guehi front. Appreciate it. So, City gain an experienced player. Crystal Palace lose their captain. Chris Nightingale is at Selhurst Park for us. Morning to you, Chris. Good to see you. I mean, it has been a pretty turbulent weekend, hasn't it, for Crystal Palace? Not just the Guehi news, but now uncertainty around the manager, Oliver Glasner. Looks like he's going sooner rather than later, at best, end of the season.
Yeah, morning, Matt. I mean, turbulent is exactly the word for it. If we go back to Friday's news conference, he announced that club captain, as you mentioned, Marc Guehi, would be departing the club, and then goes on to say that actually he would be leaving too, albeit in the summer when his contract expires. He was disappointed with the Guehi news. We then had the defeat to Sunderland, and he chose his post-match news conferences and interviews to voice his frustrations with the hierarchy at the football club, saying that he didn't feel supported and that he felt abandoned. But Oliver Glasner is a very emotional manager. We've seen that in his time at Crystal Palace and at his previous clubs. His team aren't winning. He didn't win again at the weekend, and he hasn't actually won a game in 10 matches, so we can see where that frustration is coming from. But the club, despite those comments, said they want to support him. They want him to be here until the end of the season, fulfil his contract, because he is a legend here. He's won them 2 trophies. They want him to stay. But another point, as we have mentioned a lot over the past few days, is the transfer of Marc Guehi to Manchester City. He said that he only found out on the Friday morning that he would be departing for Manchester and that he would be out without his club captain for that game, despite preparing all week for him. And transfers have become a big sore point for Oliver Glasner. We know that Guehi will be departing for City. Last summer he lost Eberechi Eze to Arsenal, and the year before that Michael Olise to Bayern Munich. And also, could Jean-Philippe Mateta be on the way? We know that Juventus are interested in the Crystal Palace striker, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with him over the next few days.
It will. Thank you very much, Chris. Right, morning, guys. Kept you waiting a little bit. You all right?
All good, yeah.
OK, good stuff. I think we've got a lot to talk about today. Of course, we're going to start with Guehi. And let's have a look at it from a Palace point of view first, I think, because they've been a club that have been on the up for some time. FA Cup win and a lot of admiration for the way they've been going about it, style of play, Glasner, etc. But how much has a disastrous few days really set them back?
Yeah, it's huge. You know, I don't think it can be underestimated how much of an important role Marcus Guehi has at Palace. Like, he's the captain. He just seems to lead on and off the pitch. His mannerisms, the way he conducts himself. But his performances have been wonderful for them. They really have. It's the reason why he's getting all this attention. Same with the manager. The manager's getting a lot of attention because of the way Palace have played. But, you know, when you look at those transfers, you think Olise, Eze and Guehi, and you've gone Bayern Munich, Arsenal, Man City, and it's Crystal Palace. It's logical that those players have gone on to those clubs. If you're going to be a Palace and you're selling to a West Ham or someone that's in and around with you, you'd be pretty disgruntled. But if you're selling to some of the best teams in world football, you're going, it's understandable. The timing of it for Guehi is really important because Palace don't want to lose out on getting something for a player that's on a free. Maybe that's down to them. They should have probably extended his contract sooner so they're in a stronger position. So in board level, was that a mishap? But I suppose they feel like they have to get something from him. Glasner's obviously disgruntled. He's going to be unhappy, isn't he? You're the manager of your club, but you're seeing your biggest players being ripped from underneath you.
Well, three biggest players in 4 windows.
Yeah,
it's
tough to take. It really is. And because the fact that they've been successful in their own right, they've won a trophy, which is most teams dream of. It's very hard to take for Palace. But with the manager now in turmoil, it's a really tricky situation because they're not only going to have to replace Guehi, they're going to have to try and replace him as well, I think, soon, possibly.
What now, then, in terms of the money that they've got from Guehi? Did they spend it now? Do they wait until the summer? And how do they find a replacement for him? It's very hard to find someone of the calibre of Marc Guehi.
It is very difficult, and I think this is a situation where you empathise on both sides. You empathise with Oliver Glasner. I mean, he even spoke about last week in his news conference about how difficult it is to talk to his own players about having to rebuild each time a star player gets sold. But from a club's perspective, of course, like Steve Parish, Matt Hobbs, who's the sporting director, they obviously have to put the club's best interest at heart. What I would say is we saw his move to Liverpool not materialise in the summer, and a lot of that was down to Palace feeling like they couldn't get a replacement, and Igor Julio ended up going to West Ham, didn't he? And you have to feel, if you're a Crystal Palace fan, that hopefully they do have a plan, and they have communicated that to Glasner when they met with him yesterday, that, look, we know we're losing Marc Guehi, we know how much of a blow he will be, but we will try and get a replacement in within the next 2 weeks. What I would also say is they do have Chadi Riyad, who has not quite been fit this season, but they did sign him last summer. And they have JD Canvo, who, yes, is only 20 years old, but they invested in last summer, maybe as a long-term solution. So they're going to maybe have to develop him a lot quicker than they first entailed. But they knew this could happen, though.
The hard thing with Palace is they're trying to appease a manager that looks like 100% he's going to go at an hour in the summer anyway. So it's almost like an interim from now till summer. So you're trying to get someone back on board that you're not going to be able to give full reins to because he might not be in charge when it comes to taking that role. So when it comes to signings and players come in, they have to look at a close perspective and think who's best for the club, not for this manager, which is really interesting.
Yeah. Let's move on to Manchester City then. They were all over the place defensively against Manchester United, weren't they, really? Yeah. United could have scored a lot more than the two in the end. A couple of offside decisions that were very tight, and they hit the post and the bar as well. Does Marc Guehi come in? Does that one move alone, does that transform them defensively?
Oh, massively gives them an upper hand, I think. Not only are you bringing in someone that you expect is going to start straight away and be able to play the level they want within, there should be no build-up time to him getting into swing of things realistically. You feel that he's going to come in, his attitude seems so spot on that no matter where he plays, he's going to be comfortable. And no, you're doing that, but you're also stopping him going to one of your rivals, which is really important because Arsenal and Liverpool would have had invested interest in bringing Guehi in because they know how important he could be for that back four role. There's nothing more evident than the weekend how City have struggled defensively. I think they have done all season slightly. Injuries now on top of that, it's massive that they've got him through the door, and that could be the difference with giving them that push to really try and challenge Arsenal or dropping off.
It's also future-proofing their defence, isn't it? Because in the summer, John Stones is out of contract, of course. He's also been suffering with different injuries over the last few years, you would say as well. Nathan Ake has... Pep Guardiola has even admitted that he struggled to play consecutive games in a row. So when all these defenders are back, Ruben Diaz, Josko Gvardiol, you are essentially looking at perhaps a partnership for years in terms of Ruben Diaz and Marc Guehi, and Gvardiol can of course play there, but we've seen him more deployed as a left back. So I think for Pep Guardiola, Manchester City, you now have a partnership, hopefully if everyone stays fit, for years to come to challenge.
That's a good point, actually. What do you think is their first choice? If everyone's fit, what would be their first choice centre-back pairing? You've got Gvardiol, you've got Diaz, you've got Kusanov, and you've got Guehi. They're all, and Chuck Stones in there just in case he stays. Who would be their starting pairing? Eventually,
I think it'll be Guehi and Gvardiol. That's for me. I just think that that looks like a lovely, well-balanced left-footed centre-back, right-footed centre-back, pace, energy, youth on their side, loads of experience from both of them already. I think that going forward looks like a really, really solid partnership. But now Diaz will
Diaz on the bench.
If going forward, but I think Diaz will play now because of his captain, because of his experience. I think he comes into that. But going forward for City in the long term, those two seem like it could be a wonderful partnership.